How you feeling, man?
Adam, I'm doing great, and thank you so much for inviting me again. I had so much fun with you the last time I was in a podcast with you. It was utterly amazing and truly an honor to be back this time again.
You're the man. You're making so much noise on Twitter, especially over these last few months with this whole NFT boom. And during that, you also had the time somehow to launch a brand new, I guess, project, and we'll be talking a little bit more about it. E1337, tailored towards the gaming space. But before we get into that, which is why I have you here, for those who don't know you, can you give me a brief background about yourself? What were you doing, I guess, before NFTs, before crypto, before the metaverse, and where are you now?
Sure thing. Thank you for allowing me to introduce myself. So I go by the pseudonym WhaleShark, and I've been in the blockchain industry for about 9 years now. While my claim to fame, humbly saying, is NFTs, I'd actually been invested in blockchain since 2012. Prior to that, I had actually been in the brand and marketing industry for roughly about 15 years, where I cut my teeth professionally. But eventually, I got enamored by the concept of Bitcoin. Was buying half a month salary worth of Bitcoin every month from 2012 all the way to 2015. Ended up loving Ethereum and the narrative of it being the world's computer, and eventually took all of my Bitcoin and started investing in Ethereum instead. That has actually been extremely timely and nice for me. And what I ended up doing is actually extending that reach into investing into several very prominent and successful blockchain companies that we see in the space today, while at the same time allowing me to expand into NFTs in 2019 and eventually establishing the world's largest social token, Whale, in 2020. So it's really been quite the ride. And Adam, you pointed out, somehow, some way, I found a tiny bit of time in 2019, 2020 to start this new brand. Once again, it's E1337. We usually pronounce it as Elite. So ELITE, which is a traditional hacker form or hacker writing style. And eventually launch a social token for that this year. So extremely thrilled to have been doing this, but it's been a very, very busy few years.
I remember the first time I interacted with you was in Justin Blau's NFT room for his iconic drop that made headwinds and kind of defined a lot of this momentum that we saw the following months afterwards. And I remember there was something different about one when you entered the room. You were still a non, but there was a bidding war between you and I forgot. I think it might have been Egg or 888. I forgot who it was exactly. And at the same time, you were joining the clubhouse and sharing your energy and sharing your spirit. And ever since then, I've been following your journey really, really closely. And to see this a new project, Elite, kind of pop out during that whole entire wave really struck my attention because, like you said, you already built a really powerful community through Whale and through NFTs, and now you're approaching the gaming industry, right? So there's a lot to unfold over here, but I want to hear more again. How did you get into crypto? I know you started buying Bitcoin, you converted into Ethereum, but what was that aha moment for you? I know you also mentioned that obviously Ethereum being this global computer, but tell me more a little bit about that.
So during the course of my professional career, I've worked in many, many cities and countries throughout the world. I was literally moving every 2 to 3 years. Now, one of the biggest challenges that one encounters when you're moving into different countries, into different jurisdictions, is the banking industry, right? So, not revealing too much about my age here, but I come from an age where it takes, 3 to 5 days to do an international bank transfer. And that is still very much the case today. I mean, it has sped up. I have been able to send money from Asia to the US, within 2 days. But back then it was 3 to 5 days at the shortest. Um, when I did read about Bitcoin, all of a sudden I discovered that this single project, this single technology, it alleviated a lot of the challenges that I faced as a globalist and as someone who wanted to truly own my money rather than having the banks hold it for me. So, initially my entry into Bitcoin was purely from a financial and economic interest point of view. But then after that, I saw, again, the decentralized nature of it, the fact that, alternative blockchains to Bitcoin could be used with smart contracts to program the flow of money, the conditions of money. And it truly, really enveloped the economic nerd within me to drag me down that rabbit hole. So even back then when I was buying Bitcoin, I think I first entered at about $500, and all of a sudden you saw it tank all the way to 200, 250 for a couple of years. I really never lost faith in that technology because there was really nothing around there that could truly replace what Bitcoin was bringing to the entire space. Now, given that, we know that every single blockchain has its limitations. And while for a couple of years I was able to send Bitcoin within a couple of minutes, there eventually came a time where there were so many transactions and the lack of scalability resulted in me having to wait, 1 day, 1.5 days, sometimes for transactions to go through. It was that point in time where I understood the narrative of Bitcoin as, money 2.0, which is very different from the positioning where it's gold 2.0 right now.
Sure.
But looking into Ethereum, all of a sudden I was able to do transactions in the seconds or in the minutes as well. So, and then on top of that, you had the bonus of it being able to also be smart contract programmable. You had smart money all of a sudden. So, that really enamored me as well. And I've always kept an open mind to the best technology. I'm very much, you have Bitcoin maximalists, you have Ethereum maximalists. I'm sure you have Dogecoin maximalists now. I'm very much a use case maximalist. So I'll give everything a try once or twice. And, mainly I'm looking for fantastic use case and a seamless experience with that technology.
I think that's part of being a good investor, part of being an early adopter is that you have to be a maxi in certain areas and you have to be willing to try and listen to what's going on and what's picking up traction and tinker with it and test it for yourself. So more power to you with that. And I guess like a perfect transition, how does that kind of tie into Elite with what you're doing right now?
Gotcha. So I started Elite actually as a brand prior to my involvement in NFTs, or I would say probably about the same time. So the birth of Elite came by the fact that I was doing a lot of macroeconomic analysis and looking at different industries. Simply, outing myself out as a little bit of a business nerd here, but, looking for that next opportunity. After looking at everything that was available in the market, you saw that esports was gaining a significant amount of traction and continues to gain a significant amount of traction in the market today. Now, given that, as I was watching esports, delving into esports, researching esports, I was really looking at some of the apparel that people were wearing. And, it was a little bit disturbing to me because online, if you were to buy esports apparel, you were literally looking at apparel with dropship quality. So it's basically a factory who created a cheap t-shirt. They're going to charge you $20 for stamping a logo on it, right? Stamping a logo on the front, stamping a logo on the back. Bam, all of a sudden you have esports apparel. The issue is, though, when you look at sports in general, right? You got behemoths like, Lululemon for yoga. So for yoga, you have yoga pants. For basketball, you have basketball jerseys. For football, you have football jerseys. The question that came to my mind was, what is the uniform for a esports enthusiast or a professional gamer, right? And is it just a simple hoodie or is it just a simple t-shirt that's not of great quality and something just stamped on it? So that really started the fire burning within my brain to really figure out, is there a better way to do this? So what I started in 2019 with a team out of Korea, because again, Seoul is the mecca of esports, is we actually had the team go to the largest and most popular cyber cafes and gaming cafes in the entire city and actually run a poll from all of the people within there. What did they not like about their esports apparel, or what did they wish that their apparel was so that it would be better suited to their hobby? And, that's when we came up with the idea. At the same time, my involvement with blockchain was, ramping up with my involvement in NFTs. So, it was a very natural progression to say, hey, how can I use NFTs and merge that with the apparels that we were launching? After that, and we can talk about this a little bit more detail later on, but After that, given the success of social tokens and my firm belief that social tokens are going to be the next big thing after NFTs, is how do I take that other piece now and how do I put it as a part of this amazing project? So that's really, a short story about how Elite was created and how today we not only have the most customized and high quality esports apparel, but we also have NFTs that prove the authenticity of those apparel, as well as a social token that is used to drive not only the community, but is the only type of currency that we accept to be able to purchase this apparel.
That's big. That's big. That's
Thank you, my
really
friend.
big. That's really big. And it's big because you hear a lot of projects launching and you hear people, just a bunch of software developers getting together, either forking some code and just copying and pasting and changing the interface and rebranding a little bit. But you actually went to the extent of actually interviewing gamers. Were these gamers and Seoul, were they already crypto native?
So we actually developed the brand purely from gaming enthusiasts. So
Uh-huh.
some of them might have been crypto native, but the main thing from a physical product perspective that we were looking to do was how do we create the best quality and the most convenient style of apparel for people who are interested in gaming multiple hours a day. And they came back with a lot of amazing input. And that has flowed into the material, into the design, into the way that we silkscreen a lot of the designs onto the hoodies itself. And Adam, one of the most amazing things about this is when you look at the blockchain apparel space today, the hardest part of that many people have been unable to conquer yet is the physical supply chain, right? Because they're so focused on the blockchain aspects of it, they haven't been able to master the physical supply chain.
Right.
But because this product was born out of traditional apparel creation, our physical apparel supply chain from design to manufacturing to ordering to warehousing to shipment is actually world class as well. So I think we tackled the harder parts first, and really, given our interest and experience in blockchain, adding on the blockchain elements was relatively more simple.
When you were creating and designing this blockchain apparel and you were in the early phases, I guess, of designing, because you were saying how it was already a brand before it became a more crypto native brand, the way I'm understanding it. Why were NFTs and social tokens like the thing to do with it? Why was that the natural next step, the natural progression? Like, what is it about NFTs and social tokens that gave you that aha moment? You're like, wait a minute, why don't we integrate the two? Why don't we track everything and merge the digital with the physical? Why was that the way to go?
So I guess one of the main reasons that drove that was predominantly my passion for blockchain as a whole. A tidbit that people don't know is while we started off as a traditional apparel brand, the diamond that you see on the Elite logo is actually called the blockchain diamond. And it's not something that we advertise quite a bit because, again, we were mainly focused on the larger gaming market who may or may not have an interest in the blockchain. But if you look at our logo, it's basically a diamond with blocks that make up the intricacies of that design, which is actually the blockchain diamond. But I guess the other main reason is, number one, NFTs, while we look at NFTs as a way to truly manage and own digital assets, right? One of the other places that it will be used in the future and not really used as much as it should be right now is a point of authenticity, right? So I believe that in the future, you are going to see Gucci, Hermes, Chanel, all of these major luxury brands use some form of NFTs tied to the physical good to be able to vouch for their authenticity. Now, given that I'm always, I'm not so interested in the money, right? Which sounds a little bit weird, but I'm always interested in doing something that is right and doing something that is ahead of its time, right? So given that this brand was just launching, I think it was really a no-brainer to say, hey, why don't we future-proof this? And we use NFTs as a methodology to really authenticate any single physical piece that came in. And, we've expanded, right? So we started off with physical goods. We use NFTs for our digital wearables now. So, partnering up with NFT Studios, who are an amazing designer and technology player within the space. There are some fantastic things that we do with digital wearables from an NFT perspective for Elite. In terms of social tokens, again, not focusing on the money, but really doing things that are really truly disruptive and innovative. I had never seen a physical apparel brand, and we're physical and digital now, but I had never seen an apparel brand say, all right, I'm not going to accept cash. I'm not going to accept fiat. I'm not going to accept ETH or any of the mainstream currencies. What I'm going to do now is the only way that you can purchase these physical or digital wearables is only by using the native digital social currency called LEET to be able to purchase these items. Now, again, I think from our previous conversation and this conversation, you've seen I'm a little bit of an economics nerd, right? So what would happen if you had a business model that didn't really rely on the purchase and sale, so on the purchase and production of products itself, but was more reliant on the tokenomics of a social token that drove that project, right? So all of a sudden, you're creating more of a community versus a transactional ecosystem to be able to buy and trade products. So that was really the impetus for me to do that.
The category of gaming, when you look back to the initial adoption of NFTs, the first example, or one of the earliest examples at least you can think of, is obviously CryptoKitties, a game, right? And social tokens, or I guess crypto in general, has naturally aligned with the gaming industry to begin with as a use case of adoption, considering all the activities online. It's all digital. So I feel like it's that natural progression that led to that adoption. And the fact that you're going and you're taking a digital currency that you've created that's solely for your community, that you have, I guess, community ownership in, and it's a collective type of environment, and applying that to the gaming industry, right? I feel like that's just the natural next step and where things are going to be heading next. And more to your point, that people and companies like Gucci are going to start investing in their online wearables. I think you're already seeing an early example of this, and I want to pull up. It's actually a tweet from Alexis Ohanian, the co-founder of Reddit, and he basically tweets. He talks about a Gucci bag on Roblox resold for 350,000 Robux, or roughly 4.1K, okay, $4,115. The same purse in real life costs $3,400. So a digital version of a Gucci bag sold for more online than it did in person. And I think that fact, it shocks a lot of people. And remember, like he continues to tweet, he's like, remember, this Roblox purse is not an NFT, thus it has no value, use, transferability outside of the Roblox world, yet it's worth more than the physical one. Watch this space. And I think, like, the fact that Roblox is taking that and they're doing it on a very micro scale, and you're already integrating with social tokens, right? You're adding the traceability element. You're allowing players to own a digital version of what they own in the physical world. That's powerful. That's powerful.
Thank you, my friend. And I fully agree with Alexis. I mean, Jesus, I mean, there's several dynamics that we're looking at here, right? I mean, the first dynamic that we're looking at is, again, purely digital goods. And Adam, I mean, if we were to look 3 or 4 years ago, and if we were doing this, I would probably have to fly out to where you are so that we could get the quality of resolution and streaming that we have right now, right?
Right.
And 4 years ago, people would say, hey, I'm spending 8 hours a day on Zoom, talking to my coworkers, talking to my team. I think that would have been unfathomable, right? Similarly, so what does this mean? I mean, moving into the future, we all of us keep talking about the metaverse. Where we are right now, there is really restrictions, right? Because again, I can see your head, I can see you speaking, but it's very difficult for me to see you move within a 3D space. And this podcast might be 1,000 times more exciting if people were able to look at us in a 3D world and then be able to look from any angle that they wanted while we were moving our entire body, right? Yeah. So, I think when you look at the metaverse as a whole, and it's coming, right? I mean, people I mean, Zoom didn't really gain popularity until this unfortunate coronavirus crisis. But given that, the next step for meetings, the next step for interactions, the next step for podcasts might very well happen in the metaverse, where that interaction becomes so much deeper than where we're looking at it right now from a 2D perspective. And given that, if you exist in the metaverse, you're going to want to have digital apparel. You're going to want to have a digital Gucci bag and a digital Chanel watch, and maybe a digital Crockett and Jones pair of shoes. So I think it's there. Once again, it's going to take time, but I've always been very interested in being a first player so that I can learn as much as I can.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about more of what you can buy on the site. What apparel are you selling? What does that look like?
Gotcha. So for the time being, we have launched and manufactured, several sets of physical wear. They are highly limited. So what we're looking at is 3 hoodies, 2 t-shirts, and 2 baseball caps. We manufacture them on a very limited basis, simply because, again, we want to protect the scarcity of what we're developing. What we branched out to, besides physical wear, in May, earlier last month, was we actually branched out into digital wearables. So we started manufacturing not only the equivalents of the physical wearables, but we tried to understand, hey, now you have a metaverse. What happens if we design things that were suited for the metaverse? Because again, you might want to sometimes, but people might not want to go into the metaverse and wear a very simply designed hoodie, right? It might look nice, but some people just want to bling out, right? So they want to have animations, they want to have these crazy designs that you would not be able to have on a physical wearable. So that's what we actually did from the digital perspective. And I guess one of the main things that we believe in is ensuring that we have a constant flow of new designs. So for us, again, it's really a labor of love. So the team is actually launching designs every single month. And we're going to get to the point where, I don't want to drop too many things that we're doing, but dude, wearables where the design is actually a video, right? Where literally you have moving patterns and moving artwork on the wearables themselves that you'll be able to go into the metaverse and wear. So that's really what we're looking at. And once again, it's still very exploratory. We're learning a lot as we move forward, but it's been a hell lot of fun.
I wanna share my screen for a minute and actually pull up the site for those watching on YouTube, and just to get an idea of what it looks like, right? So, right, I'm on the physical side of things. You have different hoodies, and as you can see, you can only purchase it in the native currency. And as of right now, last time I checked, the currency is at like $1.27. So do the math per hoodie, per hat, per t-shirt. And I think it's actually pretty cool. But you also have the shop digital side, where you're allowing people to buy these virtual hoodies, which you're actually charging more for, right? Can you explain more behind that? Why do you put a stronger emphasis on the digital wearables versus the physical wearables?
So we believe that the majority of our core market are going to be metaverse based. And given that, what we wanted to do is, number one, ensure that people who are able to purchase our digital wearables are truly fans of the community, right? So I think that's the first perspective. The second perspective is that, and that's a perfect, if you click on it, you can actually see its 3D rotation.
Oh, cool. Oh, nice.
So I was talking about how do you create wearables that are very different from what you could ever wear in real life. This is a perfect example of one.
Dude,
right?
Imagine being able to buy this physically and wearing this around as you go to the grocery store or something.
Exactly. I mean, I would love to do it, but again, there's some things that you can only do in the metaverse, right?
Right.
Right. So I guess the main other reason why we did it was because we really protected the scarcity of all of these items. And the physical items, again, they have a very large amount of they have a relatively larger amount of production size than these digital wearables. We want to keep things fresh and we want to keep things coming in. So basically, what we're going to do is we are going to be limiting the number of digital wearables that actually go up onto the site. But at the same time, again, making sure that we're protecting that price level and protecting that scarcity of those digital wearables.
Sure, sure. And you talked a little bit about on the physical side that it integrates, I guess, with tracking and verifying through your supply chain. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what that looks like? Because I know there was such situations. I used to live in Switzerland, and I used to attend these like Bitcoin or crypto conferences in Crypto Valley in Zug. And I remember meeting one startup over there that was basically doing that with sneakers, right? Not the digital side, but more of the physical side. Can you talk a little bit more about how that works?
So we're actually still at a very rudimentary level. So the level that we are at right now is that, once again, if and this is if the purchaser of a physical item is willing to share their ETH address, what we do have is we have a mechanism whereby a corresponding art NFT, actually, and it's actually on the website as well, but an art NFT is sent to that corresponding address. And again, what happens is that in that NFT, you have not only a beautiful piece of crypto art, and we worked with an artist called Daniel Ignacio, who was very awesome about creating these cyberpunk-inspired art pieces. And basically what it has all of the details where you can see, again, which item was it, where was it from, and the date of minting and stuff like that. Now, what we are exploring at the moment is ways to actually tie the physical to the digital piece. And we are evaluating, several options here. I mean, it could be simple as printing a QR code where, again, the QR code would directly go towards that NFT. Or it could be as complex as actually inserting an NFC chip into these digital wearables itself, right? So I think that would be the more advanced stage that we're looking at.
Right. Oh, and you can't see what I'm looking at. Hold on. I wanted to go. I just clicked on OpenSea. Let me share my screen again, because I basically what I did, I clicked on the buy now, right? And it took me to OpenSea. So just so users can see what that looks like, right now I'm on the OpenSea market. And when I was on the digital side of the site, I clicked on that awesome 3D rotation for the cyberpunk, and this is actually how you buy the digital version. And then I'm guessing it would integrate to the appropriate platforms that you can actually use, wear, and show off these I guess digital clothings, right? This digital textile. So am I understanding that correct?
Yes, exactly,
Okay.
Adam. And you're going to appreciate this because, again, we were talking before, you're really interested in the social token space, right?
Right.
One of the things that we're going to be able to do very soon is for a single digital wearable, we're actually going to be able to partner with other social token communities, do a collaboration on a design, and have people pay in or have people buy those wearables in a percentage of a certain social token and a percentage of another social token. So let me put it this way. So let's talk about FWB, right? I mean, they're probably one of the larger social token communities, outside of Whale and outside of Elite. If there was a FWB hoodie design, right? What we'd be able to do in the mechanism is say, all right, so the price of this FWB Elite collab is going to be 50 FWB plus 50 Elite, right? And the transaction will be able to go that way so that, again, that vouching or that fandom is not only represented by the digital item itself, it's also being represented by the transaction.
Wow, that's so next level. That's so cool. So that is so cool. And that's you're talking about building like online communities and problems and groups that are united by thousands to millions. And it only makes sense, when you think about like how we've progressed, and especially over the last year, and you're betting on a macro trend that we're only going to get progressively more digital, and people are going to be investing more into their digital profiles and their identities and the things that they do online. And it just makes sense that this is like the next step kind of thing. From my point of view, people might think we're crazy right now. They're like, oh, people are never going to be spending thousands of dollars for a digital Gucci bag bag that they can't touch, or for a digital t-shirt that they can't touch, because you can't touch it. There's no value. But value is subjective, and people forget that. And when you're joining, when you're involved in the whale community, when you're involved in the FWB community, and soon to be in these other creator communities that are tokenizing themselves, it makes sense that this is the next, next step in that direction.
Adam, I agree with you. And I think I can take that again from a historic standpoint and from a behind the scenes standpoint. If I look at a historic standpoint, even my family was telling me that I was crazy buying Bitcoin in 2012, right? I remember talking to my dad, and he said, this isn't going to fly. This isn't going to work. And, I just got off the phone with him earlier this evening, and all he could talk to me about was Ethereum and how Ethereum is going to rule the world, right?
Nice.
So I think from a historic standpoint, it's always a risk, right? There was very much the risk that Bitcoin would never take off. But again, it's looking at that risk to reward ratio. From a behind the scenes standpoint, Adam, I can tell you that, every single brand is looking at how they can leverage NFTs, whether that is from a pure digital play or whether that's from a physical to digital play. I was very fortunate enough to be hosted by one of the world's leading luxury brand magazines that's actually based out of China and Europe, I would say about a month ago. And it really was a seminar where, I had the pleasure to share the stage with one of the founders of Artifact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So RTFKT, who are, again, an amazing group who are really pioneering the space. The number of questions that came through from brand managers and product developers from any of the high-end brands that you can think of was so large that we weren't able to complete the entire session in one to 1.5 hours. So I think it's coming, right? But again, very fortunate enough to be at the right place at the right time with the right amount of expertise.
No, I love it. I think that's so funny, and you're gonna see a lot of those people who've been in the traditional textile business, in the traditional brand development business. I believe usher, like you said, and the space is only going to get bigger, and there's only going to be even more questions. And you guys are definitely pioneering that. I want you to tell me more about the deep core visions, the very the deep core visions that you're trying to make a reality with Elite as the crypto, metaverse, and esports sector kind of evolve. And I'm talking more about from the point of view of applying certain use cases where perhaps the tech and the products aren't really readily available to make them a reality yet. Like, what does that look like to you?
Gotcha. So I think it's on several points, right? So I think the first point is that, I can take it from an economic standpoint, right? So, my vision, in terms of building companies is how do you disrupt the traditional flow of buying and selling, and rather, allocate it towards community growth, right? So while you have seen us been able to create a second social token, right, besides Whale, and that social token, right, again, it's in the top 5 in the entire world, and at some point was a second only to Whale. But is it possible to build a platform whereby the growth of a company, the financial sustainability of a company, is really based on the community and based on token price rather than the inflows and outflows of cash and fiat, right? So I think that's a major economic experiment that we're doing there. Now, given that, again, the reason why we can't take it mass market at the moment is because a lot of those technologies, they're not everyday consumer friendly, right?
Yeah.
So the only way that you can purchase LEET right now, or you can sell LEET, is through Uniswap. Again, the common person on the street is going to look at Uniswap and after that learn about MetaMask and say, what do I do, right? At the same time, if even if I launch LEET on any of the major exchanges, how do you have that seamless integration, right? Because they would have to buy it on the exchange, then they would have to take it out of the exchange, they'd have to put it in their MetaMask, and then after that, they'd have to do it again, right? So I think what needs to be done from that perspective is, really just being able to allow the everyday man, so a technology that needs to allow the everyday man to acquire these social tokens and use them as easily as, sending money through a bank, right? And I don't think we're that far off. A lot of people are innovating within that payment space today. And one of the easier, bandages that has been done is, being the ability to use credit card. Credit card converts to social token pays, right? So I
Right.
think you have that. But again, I think it's a band-aid, right? So there needs to be a more fluid way to be able to do that. The second part of technology is something actually that you brought up earlier today is how do you really integrate that traceability, for the product itself. Now, when we spoke about it earlier on, we really spoke about, how do you make sure that the authenticity of the item is there? I'm really interested in saying, how do I make sure that I can trace every single stage of the supply
Mm-hmm.
chain and inventory, right? All the way to the point that it reaches the consumer.
Yeah.
Again, a question that is being tackled by multiple companies today. No one has been able to answer it in a truly mature manner. But I would love to be able to say, all right, here's your Elite hoodie. Here's the blockchain tracking, or here's the zipper tracked all the way from South Korea. Here's all the material traced from wherever. Here's the factory where it was made, and it was actually traced to. Again, a lot of our stuff is handmade as well. So this was traced to seamstress or seamster number 46. From a quality assurance perspective, it was checked 3 times. Quality assurance agent number 2, quality assurance agent number 46, quality assurance agent number 52, and then after it got on this truck and it went to this warehouse, and then it got sent out by this packed by this person, and then it got into your hands, right? I think that is the boom, right?
Boom.
Full traceability, right? And I think if anyone ever was able to take that sort of a technology into a very mature level, you're looking at full-scale disruption on the transparency of supply chain in general, right? So I think that's probably a second point that I would be looking at. And I guess the third point that I'd be looking at mainly looks towards the digital wearables themselves. And don't get me wrong, I love CryptoVoxels, I love Sandbox, I love Decentraland. But again, I think a lot of those platforms, and maybe platforms in the future to come, how do you create, again, that seamless interaction between the user and focus on user experience versus versus interaction with the blockchain, right? And I think
Yeah.
that the metaverse that's able to do that is going to win. And then after that, we'll see the proliferation of digital wearables. So those are
Yeah.
probably the 3 points.
What's up, guys? Really quick, just want to shout out our amazing sponsors who are helping make Season 1 a reality. Season 1 welcomes Coinvise, where you can create a personal or community-owned social token on Ethereum. Coinvise also helps you create incentives through token rewards and bounties, NFT business models, and bot integrations for Discord. Go check him out at coinvise.co. Season 1 welcomes POAP, P-O-A-P, short for Proof of Attendance Protocol, which enables a novel way of creating one's life diary. Leveraging NFT tech, POAP facilitates an easy way to mint non-fungible tokens related to meaningful events. It's frequently used in crypto-native communities, and now it's starting to create NFT collectors in the mainstream too. They are hiring for roles like BizDev, key account management and operations. You can apply by visiting adamlevy.io/POAP. That's P-O-A-P. All right, back to the episode. That first of all, let's backtrack for a minute. That was like to the T, and it just shows how experienced you are in the textile space and in the e-com space and the entire, I guess, that entire industry. So, and I remember those types of conversations when I was living in Switzerland and Crypto Valley, quote unquote, Zug, being the pioneer that it is for innovating and being an early adopter of regulation and this technology. They were still having those conversations 3 years ago, right?
Yep.
And to show you that still isn't a problem that's solved yet, shows you how early we are. So if anybody listening to this solves that problem or is working on that problem, hit us up and let us know. Because I think WhaleShark, you're the prime use case for making it a reality and developing a case study from that, actually. And yeah, it'd be exciting to see how that kind of plays out.
Adam, absolutely. And honestly, I did dabble in it a tiny bit. So, I did take a look at it before. it is just a very, very complex thing because, again, when you look at it, and I think even the extended use case of applying blockchain-based supply chain tracking all the way to agricultural goods, I mean, it has the ability to change everything. Imagine being able to pick up a tomato, sorry, tomato, um, at your grocery store, being able to scan a QR code, understand not only exactly what was the geographical, I guess the geographical flow of that single tomato, but also understanding under what soil, weather, and other conditions it was being grown in, right? Again, the blockchain has infinite number of use cases that can bring humanity together and make society so much more better as a whole. And I'm just amazed every single day by looking at all of the amount of innovators and entrepreneurs in the space that are leveraging that technology to do so.
And that again is another big macro trend there. Consumers care about where their food comes from. Consumers care about where their clothing comes from, where the fabric comes from. Consumers care about where their diamonds come from, right? They care about where a lot of the products that they use, what's the source and what does that look like? And many times companies even leverage that as a marketing tactic to show their level of transparency, to show their level of sustainability. And the fact that they can even present that with data or soon be able to do that is interesting. It's really interesting to see how that plays out.
Dude, idea just popped in my head. Dude, again,
yes,
Adam Levy, podcast extraordinaire. If he was wearing an elite hoodie, and a hoodie used to belong to Adam Levy, and it was tracked by an NFT because the NFT moved through his wallet, again, that hoodie could be worth significantly more than what someone originally purchased it for, right?
Boom.
So supply chain and movement of products is just such a prime use case for blockchain. I just can't wait to see all of those developments in the upcoming years.
I love it, man. We're thinking so in the future, and those types of conversations stimulate me. I want to talk more about the user experience, like you dropped, the utility. What can people actually do with Elite Token beyond just using it to purchase clothing? What does that look like right now? And as a follow-up, what do you think that will kind of like evolve to in the future?
Gotcha. So I think we always produced digital and physical wearables as a very base use case, right? There are so many different things that you can do with social tokens, and we've implemented quite a bit of them at Elite. So I would say that the first thing that you can do with Elite tokens is within the Discord, which again, it grew faster beyond my imagination. I think we're probably 3,500 to 4,000 members. And a lot of that growth has come over the last 1 to 2 months. You can actually use those tokens to participate in some of the play to earn games that we have a moderator team, and they play amazing blockchain games like Axie's Infinity. They play Blanco's Block Party. They play Gods Unchained. They play Crypto Motor Stat, and many other games. And we're actually also going to be partnering with other blockchain companies, blockchain gaming companies in the space, where people can actually use and hold LEET so that they can participate in those events. The second thing that they can do is, again, everyone loves a good airdrop. I love a good holder. So what I tend to do is, again, with that LEET and how much you hold in your MetaMask account, basically we have a bot that actually monitors all of the different addresses, and we're able to give airdrops to the largest holders of LEET, because at the end of the day, what we're looking to do is we're looking to create a community, and not again, no disrespect to traders, but we're looking to create a community, right? So you can actually earn more LEET by holding LEET. The third thing that you can do with LEET is we've actually set up a DAO. And again, we are still waiting for the advent of on-chain DAOs, whereby it's very plug and play, seamless, and easy to use. But for the time being, we have a full-on voting mechanism whereby people who hold LEET gain DAO voting roles. And what they're able to do is they're able to vote on the events that we hold. They're able to vote on the designs that we're going to do. They're going to be able to vote on the upgrading of the NFTs or the digital wearables, which is another interesting perspective from NFTs. And the fourth thing that they're able to do is they're also going to be able to vote on all of our future production. So again, one of the biggest issues that apparel manufacturers face is I don't know how much of a certain design and of how much of a certain size that I need to manufacture, right? By actually having the community vote on things and actually having the community be able to stake their lead beforehand, so almost like a pre-buy process, there is absolutely no wastage in the supply chain because I know exactly how much of each design is going to go through, and I also know exactly how much of each size we need to produce, right?
Hmm.
So again, it's much easier on the environment as well.
Fascinating. A lot of people launch tokens, WhaleShark, and they launch them to launch them, and they create like liquidity pools or yield farming, and all these random like economic incentives. Which more power to them. Obviously, it's a way to, I guess, bootstrap liquidity, get more people involved. But the real power, like you said, is delivering real utility that extends beyond the blockchain, right? Building a community around something, incentivizing long-term holding versus those traders that will try to speculate on the community and pump and dump the price beyond your control. And the fact, like the way you've kind of thought about, I guess, rewarding users and getting them to contribute is very unique within itself. And I wanted to ask you, is there a framework that you use to kind of create these value chains, to create this utility? Like, how do you think about utility, and how, even more so for the creators that are listening, how should they be thinking about when they want to launch their token and build a community
Mhm.
around it? How should they be thinking about utility, the value that comes once people have and are holding the token?
Gotcha. That's a fascinating and amazing question, Adam. So I think there are several things that one needs to consider before launching a social token. The reason why you see, many of the long-term stayers on the top list of social tokens stay there, is simply because we have managed to be able to acquire the expertise in multiple fields of discipline, right? A lot of people enter the social token space assuming that as long as they do some basic tokenomics, the thing is going to fly. But what people don't understand is that number one, social tokens are really a long-term effort in community building. You got to be there no matter whether it's 15 cents or $15 or $150, right? You need to be there day in and day out, grinding with the community because at the end of the day, that's just what it's all about, right? It's about community engagement and having the community support that token. But given that there are several areas of discipline that one needs to acquire to be able to effectively manage a social token, you're looking at, marketing, obviously a no-brainer, marketing, branding, community building, and management. But the two that I guess I've been able to bring to the table, I have a fantastic team on both Whale and Elite, but the two that I excel a little bit better on would be economics and game theory, right? Because from an economic perspective, you do need to have a decent grasp of monetary policy or monetary theory, right? To understand, how scarce should this token be? What should the distribution be? Where should that distribution go, right? So I think that's the first and fundamental step in terms of, what is the macro tokenomics of the token that you're trying to create, right? And again, you need to leave yourself enough runway, depending on how you're launching the token. You need to be able to leave yourself enough runway so that you can continue to support the community without losing all of the tokens, right? So, an aspect that could be very appealing to a creator is saying, all right, I'm only going to keep 20% and I'm going to sell the other 80% away. What do you have left in hand to be able to incentivize your community after that, right? So really, I think from a macro perspective, you're going to look at that. And then from a game theory perspective, game theory has always been extremely intriguing for me. It's number one, what sort of behavior do you want to drive by your community, right, in their interactions with the token? And number two, what sort of events will really drive that behavior that you're looking for, right? So again, the most fundamental and basic, and again, it wasn't basic when I started liquidity mining, right? Because I liquidity mine, I hold, therefore I earn more, and therefore I'm going to continue to liquidity mine more, right? But again, if the social token doesn't hold value because your community engagement is low, then people will say, why am I liquidity mining at 10 cents for, right? So I think it is a mash and really a structure in terms of understanding here are here's the framework. So firstly, here is the behavior that I want to drive, right? Here's the framework of events that are going to drive this behavior. And here is the interaction between each style of event that leads to, in my case, long-term holding rather than trading, right? It's all about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, you have a wealth of experience, obviously, doing Whale and now applying it to the second project, the second iteration into Elite. What would you say are I guess those main learning points that you took away from launching Whale when designing it, building it, and kind of like bringing it to market? Like, what was there anything you wish you knew you would have known prior to launching your first project, Whale, and now applied that to Elite?
Amazing question again, my friend. So I would say the first thing is that team is everything, right? Like many others who launched into the social token space before and continue to launch in the social token space, community management, community event execution, and fostering community engagement is harder than one can imagine, right? So you see sometimes people launch a project with maybe 2 or 3 people, assuming that they can actually get the community engaged on a day-to-day basis. I was very fortunate at Whale because, again, those community members and those community leaders came on very, very quickly. But one of the things I realized very early on before starting Lead was that I needed to create a separate team that would be able to sacrifice their time and their energies to making sure that we were building an amazing community, right? So I mean, the team at Elite is wonderful. They're mainly focused on driving those events down there. But I mean, the main thing probably that I learned is that team is everything, and you can never underestimate those resources. The issue with social tokens and social token communities is that, again, if the founder is the only one who is supposed to be driving that engagement, the founder is not going to be available 12 to 24 hours a day to sit down at their computer and make sure everybody enjoys it, right? I guess the second thing that I learned, and again, it relates to people. I think, as you look at all businesses in life, eventually it all leads to the people and the teams, is that I wish when I started Whale, I had a much more mature HR structure in place. And I know that when I say HR structure, probably the decentralized community is going to cringe a tiny bit.
No centralization.
No HR, no finance. But in all honesty, people are people, right? I mean, while we are all in the decentralized space, the incentivization, the encouragement, the management of people is not something that a robot can do. And sometimes, again, when you look at a lot of the companies and organizations that are coming into decentralized space, they're saying, hey, we're Web 3.0. We don't need to have KPIs. We don't need to have HR monitoring processes. We don't need to have, annual reviews. And what you see is that those projects just fall apart simply because, again, there's no guiding structure and process in place for people to understand what they should be doing, right, on a day-to-day basis. So, we realized this very early on at Whale. And what I did was I hired and implemented, a HR expert from my previous endeavors and brought her into Whale as well as into Elite, again, to make sure that everyone is not only productive, but they're also enjoying what they're doing and they're focusing on enjoying what they're doing. So I think the second lesson really was about that, and just being able to make sure that everyone had a relatively structured environment so that they could do what they needed to do effectively. And I guess again, the third thing that was that I learned from Whale is that again relates to people. Not everything needs to be done manually, right? When you're looking at building a community on Discord, you got a gazillion different bots that you can use. What boded very well for Elite was I just took the same bot structure that we had on Whale, implemented it on Elite, and we were good to go. Whereas it took probably 2 to 3 months to exactly understand what bot structure we needed at Whale before I could do it there. So yeah, I think it all, at the end of the day, it all pertains to people, it all pertains to team, it all pertains to workflow, because managing a social token is significantly more challenging than most people might think.
That's golden. And I think those 3 points tend to get overlooked, especially in a DAO circumstance, because DAOs are naturally decentralized organizations, as their abbreviation kind of suggests. But when you're building something that's decentralized, you still need to have accountability, and people are used to having centralized forms of authority, kind of guiding them and leading them. And I think you approaching it from the point of view of trying to find at least, well, one, there's you as that quote unquote thought leader, that visionary that's setting the path for everyone to build on and to work on, but also bringing in an external person, someone in HR, that makes sure that the environment, that the vibes, that people feel like they're building something that they're excited about, is very critical. That I feel like a lot of projects may overlook, and might see this thing as a cash grab rather than just actually investing in the value that extends and unlocks with these tokens, that extends beyond token price, that extends beyond crypto. And I think you could take those 3 points to the bank. That's awesome.
And my
Let's
friend, while we are in a decentralized environment, while we are in the decentralized, age of decentralization, at the same time, people who are participating in decentralization are still people, right?
yeah.
So I think that's why people are so important, and that's also why we also need to have the structure to bring out the best in people.
Yeah, sure. We're coming close to an end, so I wanna leave you with a final thought. There's this. I'm thinking about social tokens, the creator economy, people tokenizing their communities, brands tokenizing their communities, and I'm thinking, and this might be extreme, but I'm asking this to everyone. Okay, I feel like we're leaning somewhat towards a Black Mirror effect to an extent, and what I mean by that is you're going to have people, brands, and personalities, influencers, kind of publicly traded on the markets, on the crypto markets. And right now, as a society, we tend, a lot of people, I don't want to bucket everyone, but a lot of people tend to, I guess, determine influence by the follower count of someone, right? And they
Mhm.
determine their thought leadership based off their social media value and all that around it. But now we're approaching a world where people are going to be basically publicly traded and associated with a price. Oh, this person's worth $1. This person's worth $2. This community is worth $100. Blah blah blah. Right? Do you think we're kind of pivoting towards that world where we're having like a quote unquote human stock market, community stock market?
And whenever you see my mouth open like this, Gabe, it means I'm smiling from ear to ear, because you're asking you're asking the right question. So I think it's difficult, right? So when you look at the social token economy, and when you look at influencers, I mean, let me split this off into two different things, right? So the way I think that the social token space is going to grow is that everybody and their grandmother, very similar to NFTs, right? Everybody and their grandmother was either buying NFTs or selling NFTs. You're going to see everybody and their grandmother create their own social token relatively soon, right? Because it's just so easy to do. However, what you're also going to see is that they underestimated the 5 points that I brought up just now: branding, marketing, community building, economics, and game theory, and then really understand, oh, what have I gotten myself into? And then after that, just desert their community altogether, and you'll see that token collapse, right? So what I think in the short term, that short to midterm, what you're going to see is you're going to see a wide proliferation of social tokens. And then after that, people who either, number one, didn't succeed to the extent that they wanted, or number two, underestimated the amount of resource and effort that it took, closed down their social token. But at the same time, I believe what we're going to see is we are going to see umbrella social tokens spring up, and people are going to start using multi-use social tokens that they're affiliated with, rather than their own specific social token. So let me give you an example. For example, you could have, 3 different A-lister celebrities who all belong to a particular genre. From month 1 to month 12, what you're going to see is those 3 individual celebrities create and use their own social token. What they'll find out though is that it's too resource intensive because I'm a celebrity because I need to act, because I need to sing, and instead they're going to group together and they're going to create their own group social token while also recruiting people of their friends or whatever into that same social token. So you'll see 5 to 10 celebrities use that same social token because it embodies the values that they embody themselves, right? And that's your talk probably looking at the mid to longer term. The most concerning thing to me about social tokens, and even more so personal tokens, right? Because again, we've seen it with BitClout, and I'm an avid fan of BitClout, right? I'm an avid fan of BitClout, and shout out to all of my followers as well as coin holders there. But one of the biggest concerns for me, because I've been through the same process myself, is do I determine my self-worth based on my token value? And how does that affect my mental health, right?
Right.
When I first started Whale, I know I started at 15, 20 cents. And then after that, you saw it extend into $3. Then after I saw it dip all the way back down to 80 cents. Does that mean my self-worth increased by 200% in a month, and then after that dropped by 60% the next month, and now Whale is at $12? Does that mean my self-worth increased by 2,000, 3,000% since last year? It's very easy to take it very personally, right? My social token price went down, people hate me. My social token went up, the entire world loves me.
Yeah.
Right? And Adam, you can see it with likes and follows today, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what happens when you take that into monetary value, and what will the psychological ramifications be on people who are unable to dissociate themselves or their real true self-worth with their commercial value of their personal tokens? I think if it's not managed appropriately, it could have severe ramifications on the psychological behavior of youth today, right?
Yeah. And that just proves that the market for mental health is just getting bigger and bigger and stronger as we continue to denominate people's worth by numbers, follower count, publicly traded number for their asset, for their token, for the utility token, et cetera, et cetera. The situation the scenario that comes to mind, like let's say it's 2030 right now, and people have their Google glasses or their Snapchat spectacles, and that has a lot of AR functionality. People are wearing them, walking down the street. All these micro interfaces kind of appear and through the lens, and they appear in front of you. You look at someone, their profile pops up. You're able to see how many followers they have, what their token's trading at, where they ate last, where their last Yelp review was. And you're basically able to build like a profile of someone on the go, and that number kind of being a core factor in that. And whether that reality is going to come true, who knows? But it's something I like to think about as I see the growth of social tokens kind of progress and become stronger, and the use case for them to empower creators and take control of their audience beyond these Web 2.5 platforms like Facebook, Google, YouTube, etc. I think there's something there. There's that powerful narrative there, and with every single new thing, there's always its pros and cons. And if you've done a good enough job with kind of separating your value from your social media account, right? Mm-hmm. This is just like the next step towards it, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but what you're doing, you're incentivizing long-term holders. You're incentivizing, and you mentioned that right in the very beginning or mid conversation. You said we want to avoid the traders, right? We want to avoid the speculators. We want to incentivize people who are holding elite to come be a part of the community. There's actually something over here that you might enjoy. So yeah, something to think about. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I can't wait till we get to that world where, again, I would love to don a pair of Apple glasses and, be able to see all the amazing accomplishments that other people have done. But again, to your point, I mean, people do need to dissociate themselves, I guess, from their social media. I guess social media likes and follows, and now, right, their market value, right? So it's no longer a company market value, their market value from their true value. And, hopefully people will come to understand that again, it's just a fluctuation in the market. And again, I've never dissed traders before. I think again, every single project needs to have holders and traders. They're two sides of the same coin, because you need to have the hold, but you also need to have the liquidity. So both things are there. But again, I can't wait to see all of the amazing things that are going to be built on blockchain, as well as how that integrates within society as a whole.
Amazing, man. I feel like we can continue this conversation for hours, but obviously I want to be respectful of your time. WhaleShark, more power to you, man. More power to your communities, to your projects. I love seeing what you're doing, and I hope to have you on again soon.
Thank you so much, Adam. It is by far one of my favorite times to be able to sit down with you in this podcast room. I always find that you ask some of the most amazing questions, my friend. And thank you. I would be more than happy to come on anytime you invite me.
I love it, man. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you.